In 2012, when Mitt Romney faced Barack Obama for the presidency, the evangelical vote came in at 27% of the overall electorate, the highest it had ever been for a presidential decision. But there were many caveats in those numbers. The belief by some that evangelical leadership had failed to actually lead their many flocks in one direction, that their influence was on the wane thanks to globalization, the digital age, and thousands of churches closing their doors every year. And a number of pundits chalked it up to evangelicals not cozying up to a Mormon candidate and choosing to stay home. It could have been better, they say. Evangelical leaders, of course, chafed at those opinions. They still do. But the fact is, and we've been told here on this show many times in the last year, Christians need to show up at the polls this year and let their voice be heard, even though to some, the person they have been led to vote for is not what many of them stand for. Therein lies the rub about Donald Trump and the coveted evangelical vote. Be a part of this discussion. Get on the line right now. Stake your claim, 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-639-7629. We will be coming to your calls. Our guest is president of the Southern Evangelical Seminary, formerly president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. Welcome, Dr. Richard Land to the Hard Line. Dr. Land, thank you so much for joining us. We want to get right to Donald Trump's meeting yesterday with the group of evangelicals. I'll talk about the advisory board in a moment, but at the meeting, Donald Trump spoke about the lack of spirit in the United States, said it was time to spiritize the country. Here's what he said.
You also need spirit. There's no spirit in these inner cities. You look at what's going on in Chicago. Chicago is like a tale of two cities. And you look at what's going on in Chicago, Ronnie, you look at what's going on in different places in our country. There's no training, there's no spirit, there's no hope. There's no hope for these people. And we've got to get in and we've got to straighten it out. We've got to spiritize this country. And I'm not only talking about the inner cities, I'm talking about everywhere.
Dr. Land, there's no doubt Donald Trump spoke what many people, evangelicals and non-evangelicals, have been thinking in this country. So why then is it that the day after that speech, and what I've talked about here on this show, we still hear from a lot of evangelicals who say that they lack faith in Donald Trump and they are not willing to just immediately get behind him? Why is that?
Well, Donald Trump has several shortcomings from an evangelical perspective in both his personal life and background. Plus, a man who says he's never felt the need to ask for forgiveness has sort of defined himself out of what evangelicals understand the Christian faith to be. And so that's why I think there's, and the fact that he's recently changed on some issues and become more conservative, they want to see more, record of change and more consistency of commitment. There are things that Donald Trump can do that will make it easier for evangelicals in large numbers to vote for him. And there are things he can do that will make it more difficult.
Okay, let me stop you if I can there for a moment, Dr. Land. Yeah. Let me stop you if I can there for a moment. What is it then, in your opinion, that he can do to make it easier for evangelicals to trust him?
I think consistency, speaking out strongly on issues that really matter to evangelicals. I think Jack Graham, who's also on the advisory committee with me, put it well at the Southern Baptist Convention when he said the three issues that compel him to get involved in this campaign, even though he was not for Donald Trump in the primaries. Number one, the Supreme Court vacancies and the federal judiciary. If Mrs. Clinton is elected, she will weaponize the judicial branch against people of faith and evangelicals. Secondly, the sanctity of human life and the defense of human life from conception to natural death. And then, Donald Trump, I would like for him to say how pro-life he is differently, but Mrs. Clinton has never met an abortion she couldn't live with, ever, even a partial birth abortion.
Does that simply speak to it, though, the fact that when it comes down to Donald Trump, and I've had evangelicals tell me this flat to my face, they say, yes, you are correct, that Donald Trump is simply in their minds, he's not perfect, he's not really what we want, he doesn't basically have a lot of the things that we want in somebody backing us, but he's better than the alternative, so we have to get behind him.
Well, I think a lot of evangelicals feel that way. A lot of evangelicals are saying, this is a classic case of the lesser evil versus the greater evil. And if you wash your hands of the situation and just say, well, I'm not going to get involved, then you become morally culpable for helping the greater evil prevail, that you have a moral obligation to help the lesser evil prevail over the greater evil. And if you really believe that Mrs. Clinton is a greater evil and Donald Trump is the lesser evil, then a lot of evangelicals believe you have a moral obligation to support the lesser evil.
Okay, let me talk to that if I can too, because Michael Farris is a veteran supporter of the moral majority, says that he was there in the 1980s when it was started. He posted to his Facebook page regarding the evangelical leaders and the visit with Mr. Trump, and here's what he said. This meeting marks the end of the Christian right. The premise of the meeting in 1980 was that only candidates that reflected a biblical worldview and good character would gain our support. Those are pretty harsh words when he says this is the end of the moral majority. Do you agree with his comments?
Well, I can understand why he said it. I gather he wasn't at the meeting yesterday. I've talked to many people who were at the meeting, and they felt like that a lot of progress was made. The evangelical leaders did not kowtow to Mr. Trump. They talked pretty straight to Mr. Trump about their concerns and about what he needed to do to get more support. Look, Donald Trump is not, Donald Trump was, I'll be honest with you, he was 17th of 17 candidates in the primaries for me. 17th. But either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton is going to be the next president of the United States. And you have to deal with the hand you're dealt in a fallen world.
Okay.
And in a fallen world, we have a choice to make. Look, war is a terrible thing. Nobody wants to go to war. But if we had washed our hands and all become conscientious objectors in World War II, we'd be conducting this interview in German.
That's a feeling that is shared by many people across the board that we speak with. Not necessarily the correlation to Germany, but they say, yes, you have to go to war. You have to go to war with the one you think will win. 1-877-Newsmax, folks, if you want to join us, we're going to go to your calls momentarily here. Now, you are on Donald Trump's Evangelical Executive Advisory Board. There are 25 leaders there. You're there. He is a very, very straightforward man who doesn't take a lot of suggestions from other people, doesn't really like to take orders from other people, and you said it, you people and the evangelical leaders spoke very frankly to him. And
no, I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
Okay.
I had a previous commitment to speak to homeschoolers at the state capitol in Raleigh. I've talked to people who were there, but I was actually not there.
Fair, and I appreciate you setting that straight, but you indicated that they did speak very frankly with him, which is what we've heard from many reports. What makes you believe that Donald Trump, who doesn't listen to anybody at this stage, will listen to the evangelical leaders and bend at least a little bit to your will?
Well, I don't think it's true that he doesn't listen. I'm told that he really prefers straight shooters who tell him what they think and, who don't pussyfoot around and tiptoe around the issues. I'm told he's that way in business. I'm told he's that way in his personal life. And he does listen to people. He listens to his sons. He listens to his daughter. He listens to, Newt Gingrich tells me he listens to him. He doesn't always agree with him, but he listens. And so, Donald Trump has learned a great deal. I mean, obviously, you don't come from where he was to where he is as the presumptive Republican nominee without having an ability to have a really fast and accelerated learning curve. So he learns. I mean, he does adapt. He does learn. Look, it's our responsibility to tell him what he needs to hear from a biblical perspective. It's his responsibility whether he accepts that advice.
I'm going to say there are a lot of evangelicals out there who have the faith and trust in you and others to make sure that that message gets across. Dr. Richard Land, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your time. We'll speak to you again. 1-877-Newsmax. 1-877-Newsmax. Stay on point. We only have a couple of minutes here. Pro, con, evangelical, not vote. Let's get to it. Donna in Smithfield, Rhode Island. You believe Donald Trump will win the Christian vote? In 30 seconds, tell me why.
Because he wants to secure the borders in the other parts of the world. He's saying that Christians are being killed. We got to lose to vote for Donald Trump. He is a new type of person coming in. You're going to vote for Hillary. She's done nothing.
Would you just say that it simply comes down to you've got to vote for Donald Trump because the alternative is Hillary Clinton? Is that as simple for you?
One, but he's talking about the borders. My life has been affected with regards to the the change in the country.
Okay, we have to put that down with you, Donna. We have to move on, unfortunately. Thank you so much for your call. Again, it still is very simple. 30 seconds to Natalie in Long Island, New York. Natalie, you believe Donald Trump will be good for the country, but tell me why with regard to the evangelical vote. 30 seconds.
Okay, 3 reasons. The first, the Supreme Court. That's the most important thing to me. The Supreme Court, the vets, and jobs.
But what about the evangelical vote? Does it make a difference to you?
Well, if you are a Christian and you believe in the Supreme Court, of course you're going to look for the best person. He gave a bunch of names. Did Hillary give any names so she would put on the Supreme Court? Of course not.
Okay. It'll be fair to say that the Supreme Court is indeed a big part of it to evangelicals because they want to watch the issues that affect them every day. Thank you so much for your call. The political animal bares its teeth for the Donald Trump speech and why Hillary's money could be a danger to Republicans in the down-ticket races, which is something a lot of people are not talking about, but is a big deal. 1-877-Newsmax. Get on the line. Stay there. We're back on the Hard Line.